Okay, good evening, colleagues. 7:15, so we'll make a start. We have tonight apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Ritchie, who I think has got issues at work which require attention. Councillor Dervish, who is still suffering with bad cold, etc. Councillor Heath, who has had, I think, today an eye operation, and we wish him all well on that. And Councillor James Coleridge on work. Those, I think, are the only apologies that that would complete everything. Yep, fine. So that's the only apologies. Declarations of interest. Has anyone a declaration of interest of a disclosable pecuniary interest or a pecuniary interest or a non-pecuniary interest relating to items on the agenda having regard to the Code of Conduct for members? Any? Do we need to, those of us who are members of other councils like Essex County Council, need to declare that? In that, I suppose there is a link.
Chairman, it would be technically an over-declaration, but if you'd like us to record a declaration for all those members who also County Council members in the budget item.
Well, I think so. So Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Bowers-Flint, Councillor Schreer and myself.
We have that noted, Chairman. Thank you. Okay,
fine. Thank you. Move on to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 16th of December. They have been circulated. Are colleagues happy that they are a true record of what took place? Agreed? I will sign them. Thank you. Public question time. I understand there are no registered speakers tonight. Public question time. So we will move on to item 5, which is clearly a significant item agenda, the council budget, council tax 25-26 and the medium-term financial strategy 25-26 to 28-29. To any people who might be watching, I should say that this isn't just being considered for the first time tonight. There have been seminars for members back in November. Work has gone on with that. Only last week we had corporate strategy meeting here, and of course it will also go to full council later this month. In introducing this item, Councillor Bowers is going to tailor it accordingly on the basis that the people here tonight have had a really good look at what is going on. But I just thought I would say that because people might think, well, they didn't go into great detail. How did they do all that? But clearly there will be a full debate as well at council later this month. So without more ado, I'll ask Councillor Bowers to introduce the paper, which is on page 5 of your agenda and pages 5 to 124. Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Chairman. The Provisional Local Government Finance Settlement for 25-26 was published by the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government on the 18th of December 24. The provisional settlement is for 25-26, although the Government has committed to providing multi-year settlements for 26-27 alongside reform of the local government finance system. The governance assessment of core spending power for Braintree is effectively the same as 24-25, though the headline national average increase in core spending power was 6%. The main element of increased spending power is from the assumed increase in council tax, reflecting an increase in tax base and applying the maximum percentage increase before a referendum would be required. While funding has been allocated, the approach adopted results in a significant reduction in cash terms from the previous guarantee. New homes bonus is included in core spending power, although the council has traditionally not used this to support the revenue account on day-to-day spending. The funding floor, which ensures that no local authority has a core spending power less than 24-25, considers changes in entitlement to new homes bonus. The assumptions and estimates for the budget and MTFS, the medium-term financial strategy, have been reviewed considering the latest information available. Services have reviewed their budgets, identifying cost pressures, areas of proposed budget growth and opportunities of savings and additional income. Previously agreed savings have been reviewed. Initial budget proposals were included in the report to Cabinet on the 25th of November, and these were also considered by corporate scrutiny on the 20th of November. There has been a recast of the medium-term financial strategy, which now includes the provisional local government finance settlement, council tax and business rates, tax base, updated forecasts of interest rates and revisions to Treasury management income. The council has been successful in previous years of delivering efficiency savings and additional income, with around 10 million identified over the last 10 years. Continuing to find further savings is more difficult without adversely impacting services or increasing the risk of not achieving a sustainable MTFS. In relation to council tax, the increase to the Braintree district element of the overall council tax bill has been carefully weighed against the ongoing financial pressures facing the authority, while also recognising the impact this will have on households. The proposed council tax rate for 25-26 is £206.01 for a Band D property, equivalent to around 11p extra per week. The percentage year-on-year change is 2.97% and is within the referendum limit. Regarding our proposals for investing in services, pay inflation and other cost pressures, including some reduction in income, mean 2.6 million extra is required to maintain services. Landscape services, where there is a need for more proactive management for the council's tree stock and extra staffing to support the wider landscape services function. Pride in Place initiatives with funding for a new response team and for cleaning the A120 bypass under new traffic management restrictions, helping to maintain, improve and enhance the appearance and cleanliness of the district. Climate change, a further allocation of £100,000 for climate change initiatives and projects delivered in conjunction with external funding where available. We are making prudent provision for dealing with any risks from planning appeals and continue to respond to the challenges of preventing and managing homelessness and rough sleepers using ring-fenced government funding. A provision of 4.5 million has been made to meet the cost of changes to waste collection systems to improve recycling across the district. It is proposed that the new homes bonus receivable for 25-26, combined with the remaining uncommitted balance of just over £1 million from prior years, is allocated for the following purposes: a community asset fund of 1.5 million to provide funding for investment into community assets. Opportunities will be explored to deliver capital improvements to community assets across the district. Housing initiatives, with £500,000 being set aside to provide extra one-off funding to respond in the most appropriate way to the growing pressures on the availability of temporary housing accommodation. And our sustainable capital programme, recognising that existing capital resources are largely committed, the balance is to be used alongside any other new capital resources generated to maintain an active and responsive capital investment programme. Moving on to some supporting communities, the cost of living, the budget retains the balance of the cost of living fund to use in 25-26 supporting residents. The community-based support, no changes are proposed to funding for parish councils for the street cleansing partnership, and we will continue to provide funding for key partners including Citizen Advice and the Braintree Museum Trust. Councillor Community Grants Scheme, continuing to provide each member with £1,250 to allocate to projects in their ward. Over £8 million of support to low-income households of both working and pension age through the local council tax support scheme. We also have an exceptional hardship fund and extra support on housing-related costs through the discretionary housing payments fund. Regarding balancing our budget, an additional income and savings of 2.1 million, mainly from Treasury Management and Garden Waste Service and other commercial income. Discretionary fees and charges have been reviewed and proposed increases reflect costs of services, comparative data, statutory limitations and service needs. A freeze on car parking charges and the Garden Waste subscription service. The budget shortfall for 25-26 had reduced from 731,000 to 361,000, which is to be met from general balances. I just want to update Cabinet tonight, as we have had confirmation on the final local government finance settlement today, and just want to bring one important piece of news which is not good for us as a council. Following the changes announced in the autumn budget to the national insurance contributions, the government committed to compensate public sector organisations for the increased cost in relation to direct employed staff. The local government finance settlement also includes outlined details of the arrangement for compensation to local authorities. Individual local authority allocations were to be confirmed in the final local government finance settlement, As you will see in the report tonight, an estimate of 300,000 have been allowed for budget planning. This compares to the assessed cost of 472,000, though this was heavily caveated as insufficient detail wasn't available at that time. The final amount has been confirmed today, and unfortunately this has resulted in a worse position for the council. We received detail this afternoon. The news is not good, with the value of the net NI compensation being £177,492, which is lower than the estimate of 300,000. There was uncertainty over the basis of distribution anyway, and it looks like there has been a change in approach from that set out in the provisional settlement. What that means for us is that the set budget for next year, we will have to use an extra £122,508 of balances, so that's 483,893 in total to close the gap. For the MTFS, this means that the projected shortfall for 26-27 now rises to 2.185 million from the 2.062 million as per the Cabinet report. Before I move the recommendations for tonight's item, I would just like to invite our Section 151 officer to make a few comments. There is obviously in the papers for the report, Appendix F does have a report from the Section 151 officer in regards to the robustness of our finances and our reserves. But I would just like to invite Phil Myers to say a few words, if he would be kind enough to. Thank you, Chairman.
Phil?
Yes, okay. Yes, thanks, Chairman, and good evening, members. Yeah, so as has been stated, I think the budget's obviously gone through several rounds of scrutiny, so you members will be sort of familiar with the detail. Clearly, the news today in terms of the final local government settlement is not good news, as the portfolio has outlined. It does mean we're short in terms of the compensation that was promised for the public sector in terms of the national insurance contributions. So we will have to adjust for that in terms of the final detail going through to full council. That said, as the portfolio mentioned, in Appendix F of this report, as is required, members do need to have regard to the Section 151 officer's report when considering the budget, and that report obviously details and considers the robustness of the estimates that are presented before you, as well as the adequacy of our balances and reserves. And I think we're all pretty well aware that in terms of the latter, in terms of our balances and reserves, we have a very resilient position that compares very favourably amongst our sort of peer group of authorities. So I think, notwithstanding the change that we've had today, I still think that from my perspective as Section 151 officer, the estimates are robust that we're presenting here, and that the reserves and balances are adequate for our purposes. We will be able to close the budget for 25-26, and that will require a drawdown from general balances. There is a gap, as was mentioned, in terms of the medium-term financial strategy, but as we are aware, we do have plans through the Fit for the Future transformation programme to deal with that position, and we've recognised in the last year's budget and this year's budget that whilst we see that programme through its fruition and the benefits realised from that we would expect to use balances in the short term. So I think the budget is doing exactly what we set out in terms of that strategy last year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Phil. Councillor Bowers?
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks, Phil, for that confirmation and your words. Yeah, so I think I've said as much as I planned on to tonight before I open up for members' comments and any questions. Aside from moving the recommendations, I think there's about 16 of them, so I won't go verbatim on them, but move the recommendations in Section 2 of tonight's report on pages 6, 7 and 8. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, I will formally second it before we throw it open. Members, any questions or any points that they want to draw attention to within their portfolios that may cause challenges through the year, etc.? Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Bowers for providing the report of the paper to Cabinet this evening. And as I'm sure we'll say again, and full Council, thank you to all the officer team who have been working on the budget as we come to the finality of the process. I think we have to be extremely mindful and grateful for the update regarding the national insurance additional cost. I really do feel enormously sorry for anyone who has the responsibility of trying to employ anyone in this country at the moment, whether it's public or private sector. It really is just a devastating hammer blow. Councillor Bowers and Phil Myers alluded to how we would deal with that shortfall here at Braintree District Council, and we're fortunate we can deal with that shortfall. But any unforeseen financial pressure obviously has an impact on what we want to do, and that is to provide more services constantly and frequently. And if it doesn't impact this year, there's a potential it may well impact on what we want to do in years to come. And particularly, particularly as we want to increase expenditure, and it's a good budget from an operational point of view, additional resources to keep the place clean and tidy. But these sort of additional pressures will obviously impact that, or could impact in the future. And again, I think it's a very, very sad indictment of how this government sees the importance of people in all of this and providing good quality jobs for people, whether it's public or private. I associate myself totally with great sympathy for those who are trying to keep people in work and trying to create jobs for people, because the government at the moment isn't on their side.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Any other comments or points anyone would like to draw attention? Councillor Van Dolken.
Thank you, Chairman. I just received a letter from my local parish council, and they are going to be putting up their precept on our house, my house, by double what BDC is, so it'll be 10 or 12 pounds. They employ 3 or 4 people, and they, as I think we're all aware, do not get any compensation at all. Hence this 20% increase, and I'm sure this will be the same in many other villages. It's extremely difficult situation for towns and parishes.
And of course, you must remember that town and parish councils are not restricted by a cap in terms of what they can put up. Right, any other contributions at all? Mrs. Beavis.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to start by saying that I would agree with you. I think it's been a really good process again this year, and it's started early through scrutiny, and I still think it's one of the most effective pieces of work that we as a scrutiny group do. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I think by and large, broadly, it is a good budget, and we as a district, as we know, are in a really fortunate and good place. I do just have a couple of points I just wanted to make, and a couple of questions, if I could. So on the Community Asset Fund, the new 1.5 million, which I understand comes from the work that's been done on our community assets, I guess I'd like to understand, is 1.5 million enough? And how did we get to 1.5 million? Has that come because we've done a survey of our stock? And of that 1.5 million, have we identified where we feel that we might have to put it because of what's happened with the asset review? And I don't necessarily need all of that answer yet, but I am really interested in this because I am one of those nerds, actually, as a councillor that does go on and look at our asset base, and I do go around the district a lot, and so I'd be quite keen to unpack that a bit more. I recognise the shortfall and the comments that were made by Councillor Cunningham, and that we're in a fortunate position within our general balances to be able to prop that up. I have chatted to quite a few members in the organisation in terms of our councillors, and it just seems to me they get a bit confused with the budget. And it's hardly surprising. We have these big slides presented to us, and I'm not really convinced that all members fully understand where all the figures come from and why we pick up on certain slides. And for example, I may have missed it, but I look back at my notes of last year and I spoke about the funding that we were putting into North Essex Council, so the NEC, and the piece of work that was being done from that. And I haven't seen that. It may be that it's there and I've just missed it. So just some clarity. I think it was 30,000 last year, but it was just a figure that I wrote down and I went back to. And also the funding around Pride in our place, or Pride in our patch. I think that's really commendable. But again, I'd like to understand a bit more. I know there's going to be some real focus work with that money, but is it really going to benefit our rural parishes? We're all about to start doing litter picks in our parishes, and it would be nice to know some of that money went to us, actually. And the point that was made by Councillor Van Dolken about parish councils, and one particular, which is in the ward I represent, and yes, it does have the ability to put up its tax, but it's huge, and it means that in the rural areas we're having to pay extra, whereas perhaps in Braintree they're not having to do that. And I just make that point. At Sybil Hedingham Parish Council, we're in a very good position, and we haven't had to do that, but I really understand the position of Castle Hedingham. And then finally for me, I was talking to some residents over the weekend, and they still worry about community transport and some of the difficulties they have in the rural areas. And I know some members are going to come back and probably talk to me about DigiGo and other opportunities, but it doesn't seem to work for the residents in Hedingham. We don't get DigiGo, which is a bit weird. And they really struggle still to get from Sybil Hedingham to Haverhill and to Cambridge, which are they are big towns for us as well still, where we live to get to. So yeah, broadly, just a few bits to pick up on. There is more stuff, Chairman, that I could raise, but I appreciate that I can't unpick every single line, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are quite a number of issues there which individual Cabinet members might want to pick up on. Councillor Bowes, do you want to pick up on anything to start with? And I'll also invite other Cabinet members if they wish to respond to anything.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Beavers. I note your comments about it being a good budget and the process being good again. So thank you for those comments. I think in regards, just to sort of forward on to some of the comments you were making, but in regards some councillors not understanding the budget, and I'm not going to sit here and expect every councillor to understand every figure, every budget, but going through the process, we do try and be as transparent as possible. But then we also done that finance seminar last year for all the councillors to give a bit more of a more in-depth understanding of finance and that kind of thing. And I guess if we feel that we may need to do something like that maybe next year or ahead of the process again, then we could obviously consider that, because obviously I want people to understand it as much as much as possible. In regards to the community asset part of the fund, so that is obviously a new fund that has been put into place to ensure we can protect the ongoing viability and maintenance of assets that we know the community value. At the end of the day, it's still in early stages in regards to what we do, but obviously there are a lot of assets that we own, and then we have been doing a review of our assets. I'm not sure, I don't believe that we've literally gone line for line in regards to what money we need, and then the 1.5 million. I guess the way it's been calculated is we've got the new homes bonus money and how we feel would be best used for our residents, and we know that community assets are vital for our residents, and there's a lot that do need money spent on them at the end of the day. So that's where that's come from. I think in regards community transport and pride of place, I expect other portfolio holders will come in on those points. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other comments at all? Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you very much. Yes, no, I appreciate the comments made by Councillor Beavis. What I can do is, in the assurance that over the additional pride and place, when it comes to additional litter picking, fly tips, a lot of this work will be directed by the hotspots, and it is just unfortunate that a lot of the hotspots are in rural, semi-rural locations. So I can give her assurance that the rural and semi-rural locations in the district will be getting attention. We're also having conversations with the County Council about what more we can do through County Council funding to support Pride and Place initiatives across the district, again, with a very real benefit in rural and semi-rural locations. And with regard to community transport, this authority does an excellent job of helping to enable community transport across the district, but it is subject to Essex County Council funding, and full clarity of ECC's budget will be next week. So hopeful there'll be some very positive news then regarding community transport. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Sorry, you want to come back? Yes?
Sorry, Chairman, and thank you for your indulgence. I just forgot to ask, on the Community Asset Fund from the New Homes Bonus, will that be rolled over? I know we did that on cost of living. If we didn't use all the budget, we kept it. So if we haven't got to use all that in a year, is my point, the 1.5?
I would expect so, but that will be part of the next budget process. So I can't make that commitment today, but I would expect that we would be using that to the full. Thank you.
And on the point you made, Councillor Beavis, about the money that went to some of the partnership arrangements, that was built into base budget last year, so that now is it within base budget. And you probably remember we now send out a I think it went out last month, January? A couple of weeks ago on the work that's going on within that, yes. So that is there, yeah. Okay. Any other comments at all? Can I first of all thank all cabinet members and their officers for bringing together, putting a huge amount of work. I mean, yes, it's a good budget. Relative, we'd like to do more, we'd like to have more money, we'd like to be able to provide more services, but given the circumstances that we are in and the difficulties, some of which Councillor Cunningham has outlined, it will be far better than many, and I think we are. I think we can be proud of the way in which we are maintaining our services and not having to significantly reduce the amount of services as some of our neighbouring authorities are having to do. There are still risk areas, as has been pointed out, in terms of the coming year, and there is still a huge amount of work that we will need to do over the coming years, because there will still be a gap which needs to be closed. Hopefully, I think the letter that I sent to all members this afternoon, which I got from the Minister this afternoon, and I've immediately forwarded on to all members, we will start to get, as we've been saying for a long time under both governments, it would be useful to have a 3-year settlement at least, so that we can plan on a longer term basis rather than this year-to-year situation that we have been in. But I think overall we can feel pleased with what we're doing. It would be nice not to have to increase council tax. It would be nice to not to have to do that, but I think one has to be realistic that if we were not to increase council tax, we would have had to reduce services. And I think, as Councillor Bowers has said, 11p a week for the services we deliver is not unkind, is not too disastrous. Just picking up on the issue of, and it comes out, I have to say, Councillor Beavis, almost every time you speak, this division that you want to draw, a wedge almost, between the rural areas and the urban areas. Can I just ask you to reflect on whether you think it is more cost effective, let us say, for example, to send a waste collection vehicle to Steeple Bumpstead than it is to send it to Codenalehurst Avenue. We do not allocate resources on the basis of, well, it's cheaper for us to serve that bit of the population than the other. It has to be a collective point of view, and that's the line we've taken. And I think every council has to take. But where there are particular issues, and we recognise that, I think, you know, we did have quite a debate a few years ago about the support to parish councils, and we have kept that there, and I know that has gone down very well with parish councils. And you've heard Councillor Cunningham mention also, you know, there may be other assistance that we'll be able to do, but it's just, I have to say, it just galls me a little, with sort of trying to drive a wedge as if we're two communities. We are one community, and I think it would help if we just looked at things from that point of view. Because if you also look at the revenue take, I'm not going to get officers to spend hours doing it, but I suspect the revenue take from urban areas is significantly greater than the revenue take from rural areas, just simply because there are more houses and a tax base is greater. So you might, but we don't say, well, because that's more, we will deliver it. We'll deliver more in the thing. So I've had my say. I've gone back on that point. Right, is there anything else anybody wishes to raise at all? Councillor Bowers, yes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, no, I'd just like to say on the point of obviously a good budget, and as you referred to, it's the best that it probably could be, and we'd never want to be in the situation where we have to raise council tax at all. But it's just worth making the point that, and alongside what you were saying in regards about how well our officers do, how well we work as a council in regards to some of the decisions that have to be taken, but without any of those mitigations, without them actions, then it would be 7.5 million of general balances that would need to be used. And if you look at the table in the report, there's a 2.863 million deficit per annum by 28-29. That's obviously going to be even higher with the compounding of the national insurance money, the 122,000 that we need to find. So there are still them challenges there, and we do it obviously as best we can, but we shouldn't lose sight of what the challenge is still there, and that's why certain tougher decisions have to be taken. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. It's been recommended. The recommendations are in paragraph 2 from 2.11 to 2.114. Sorry, actually to 2.22. Let's get it right. Are you happy to accept those recommendations from Councillor Bowers? Agreed. Thank you very much. They will therefore go forward to, in appropriate sessions, to council, and in other cases, the setting of the council tax and the delegation of authority. We agree that as well. Okay, thank you very much for that, and thank you to, as I say, both cabinet members and to the staff at all levels who have contributed to putting this budget together. It's become increasingly difficult over many years, to be fair, putting a budget together. Okay, let us move then on to item 6, which is on page 125 of your agenda, colleagues, the new CMS website contract. And again, this is Councillor Bowers. Councillor Bowers, please.
Thank you, Chairman. To seek approval to award the Braintree District Council website contract relating to the CMS hosting and support of the website system. This will ensure the council are able to continue to provide an accessible website, including integrating the My Account function, online forms, an online payment gateway, and Galaxy websites such as the Plaza, Town Hall and Braintree district venues. The current council website, was, as provided by Jardoo, was launched in November 2020. The council website has undergone continuous development to leverage technology effectively and enhance the digital experience for all users. Key developments include the introduction of My Account, a secure and personalised dashboard that aggregates information from various systems such as waste collection schedules from Bartek Collective. Recently, My Account was integrated with the Collective portal, enabling users to report missed bin collections, order replacement bins and subscribe to the garden waste collection service. The ongoing development of the website, which is covered as part of the additional enhancements under the contract, will include single sign-on to third-party portals, enhanced personalised user content and an enhanced booking system. These further developments will enhance the customer and user experience. In 2023, the website received just short of 4 million visits, as comparable, the website in 2021 received just short of 3 million visits. In February 23, the Jadu contract was extended for 2 years and is due to expire this month. This 2-year extension allowed the digital services team to undertake additional work to understand the future need of the council, which I'll set out in tonight's report. The last 2 years have seen significant growth in the council's digital landscape and a substantial increase in the number of customers visiting the council's website, especially via a mobile device. The recommended option for this initial 5-year contract with an optional 4-year extension, the 2+2, plus the enhancements will not only provide value for money, but it allows the council to focus on delivering a better digital service for the council's customers. This award will align the council with its digital strategy and make use of embedded technology. On that note, Chairman, I will move the recommendation as set out in section 2 on page 125 of tonight's report. Thank you.
Councillor Bowers, any comments or questions at all?
Chairman,
No.
can we have a seconder, please?
Right, is that formally seconded? Thank you. No, are you happy then to accept the recommendation in 2.1 on page 125 of the report? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Move on to item 7 on the agenda, asset management. Councillor Bowers again.
Thank you, Chairman. As detailed in tonight's report, and as Cabinet will be aware, the Council adopted a property asset management policy and strategy in 2024 to facilitate delivery of the corporate strategy from 2024 to 28. The Council's priorities, which focus on communities, prosperity and the environment, are supported through the Fit for the Future programme and include a renewed focus to review the portfolio as part of the asset management work stream. HM Treasury, managing public money, confirms the principles for managing public resources run through many diverse organisations delivering public services in the UK, including local authorities. The requirements for the different kinds of body reflect their duties, responsibilities and public expectations. Property and land holding represent a significant resource for the Council, who have fiduciary responsibilities to ensure that retained assets represent value for money. Government policy confirms it is a good practice to dispose of surplus property and plan to use the proceeds. Once decided upon, disposal should be as swift as the market will allow. Until recently, government policy recommended disposal of surplus land to be within 3 years and disposal of surplus residential property within 6 months. Government policy is now strengthened by statute in the Housing and Planning Act of 2016 Part 8 and reduces the time frame for disposal of surplus of land to 2 years. The Corporate Strategy 24-28 to 28 endorses the Council's commitment to deliver a cohesive and integrated response to climate change adaptation and mitigation. As a landlord with significant portfolio holdings, this includes identifying and retaining assets that will meet the Council's energy commitments and planning capital investment in those assets to reduce the energy consumption. There is also the need for renewed capital investment to add value or extend the useful life of assets to ensure they continue to be fit for the future and support the community. Therefore, releasing surplus assets to obtain capital receipts is an important funding stream for the capital programme. The Council holds property and land in trust for the whole community in the Braintree district, and the asset strategy endorsed the priority to review the portfolio to retain only sites that add value and release surplus sites, forming a pipeline of opportunities for partners, developers and the community. These reviews are coordinated through the Property Asset Management Strategic Board, which provides a structured operational asset assessment where representatives from each service area collaborate to challenge asset holdings and identify underutilised and surplus assets which may be repurposed or progressed for disposal. Assets identified as surplus are then progressed through the governance process documented in the Constitution, and once authorised are moved to assets held for sale in preparation for disposal. A review of the assets register has identified 2 residential properties originally purchased by the council to facilitate development, together with nearby land and an unadopted road, as sites which are incurring resource and holding costs and are considered beneficial to bring forward for disposal. We do have an option to retain ownership of these sites which serve no purpose that reflects value for the council. This option will incur the most holding costs and does not represent a good use of resources for Braintree District Council. Therefore, the recommended option is to obtain professional external valuation and commercial agency advice, and in accordance with this advice, progress the sites identified in Appendix 1 for sale. The recommendations as set out in Section 2 on page 130 of tonight's report are: declare the land and property identified in Appendix 1, Vicarage Meadow Residential Units 1 and 2, unadopted St Andrews Road and associated land off St Andrews Road as surplus, and to grant delegated powers to the Corporate Director for Growth in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance, Resources and Performance, myself, to dispose of the sites as governed by the Constitution and Financial Procedure Rules, which will include the procurement of external valuation and agency advice, and acting on this advice to complete sale terms that represent best consideration. I so move them recommendations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Right. Open for comment and discussion. Councillor Mrs Pell.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. This site, the 2 houses in Vicarage Meadow, form part of the visual aspect of House to what we've all grown up with, that they're always there. Is there any chance that when you do sell them, a clause can be put in that they can't be pulled down?
Do you want to come back?
I don't know whether it could be or not, is the truthful answer. It's something that I guess we can look into whether that would be possible, but I can't sit here and say whether that would be or not at this stage. Thank you.
I think when I read the report, it said there were some serious problems with those 2 premises, wasn't there, with water leakage or something like that. Clearly, if I mean, we will take professional advice, etc. But our first task is to get best value for the taxpayer, and that may be a sale which is unencumbered by any requirements. But we will note the points that you've made.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
do
Mr.
come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Mr Chairman, it's just me being sentimental because I've known them since I've been born, those properties, and you get it, you know, it's in your head and you always see it, that if it is possible, or you ask, that will satisfy me.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Mrs Pell. Any other comments or questions at all? Councillor Bowers.
Just on that point, and as you mentioned, Chairman, is as we move through reviewing our assets, there are going to be situations and sort of local nuances that probably local people and ward members are going to raise. But as you mentioned, what we need to do is what's right for all of our residents and the council in regards to the best value, and that's what we would need to be looking at. But obviously we can take any. It's not about running roughshod over those views, but you know that's what the end game and what we would be expected to do. Thank you.
It's remiss of me, and I should really know the answer, but does this mean every time we're going to get rid of something, it's going to come here? Because presumably there might be a number of other properties. This would be like, you know, an advertising place for us to do properties, but is there a limit or a cut-off point for coming here?
It depends on the Constitution, but I'll revert to Emma.
Chairman, it is for Cabinet to make the declaration of surplus properties. In the past, you have received a number of papers that have detailed anywhere between 5 and 10 properties in a single decision. Each one of those reports have set out why those properties have deemed to be surplus to the organisation, and hence come forward to Cabinet for that confirmation, and then delegations put in place so then those transactions can take place swiftly and smoothly. But it is the declaration of surplusness that sits within Cabinet's portfolio as a committee currently within the Constitution. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you. Just to say I'm very pleased to see this paper coming forward, and it's now the culmination of a very thorough, in-depth piece of work, the assessment of the assets, the asset strategy, and now delivering on an action plan. And I think it's very important that we don't get hung up on whether this is a Braintree district asset or it might belong to another agency. And I think this is something we sometimes do get hung up on in the public sector regarding land and property. It's the residents, it's the taxpayers' asset, and therefore I think we're obligated to do the best job possible. And with all these assets having been measured against various different value criteria, when you do have an outcome like this, suggesting disposal, I think it's very important we're seen to be acting, not just to be seen, we are actually acting quickly on that outcome. So it's good to see this coming today, and look forward to many similar other papers coming through the process quickly in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Beavis.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just got a broad question, and again, if it's the wrong question, then just say so. But I'm just curious. So I understand what we're saying here about our assets, and they're going to be disposed of. They'll go back in a capital budget to deliver capital projects. I think broadly that's what we're saying here, aren't we? And if you take an asset down, say for example, I remember taking down the old people's home in Howstead, and it's still in our budgets to this day, isn't it, that we said that money would be re-provided into Howstead because it was a Howstead asset. Are we applying it to this strategy? And if we do go, which I suspect is probably the way we're going, into some sort of devolution deal with another council, how are we going to feel if we're, are we then going to be saying, hang on a minute, I don't want this asset spent on a new slide at the Colchester Leisure Centre. I want this, I know what I'm going to be saying, and I might not be talking to the leader about, the rural villages by then. I'll be talking more broadly about my district, the district that I've been born and bred in, So I think there will come a time when I'd like to understand a bit more of that clarity. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Chairman. From my opinion, not my opinion, I think basically what's going to happen is it will go back into our capital. It won't be ring-fenced per area from where that asset may be. Because we also need to take into consideration, and it's not the situation with this one because we don't actually receive any income from this, but there is situation that as we move forward is we may still be disposing of an asset, but it might still be giving us some kind of financial return from a revenue perspective, and that's something we would look in when we sort of reinvest our capital, but it wouldn't be ring-fenced for the area. I think that would be a separate decision in regards what potentially, like you was referring to with Howstead previously, as a separate standalone sort of situation. But from any of these assets, the capital receipt will just be a capital receipt for the authority or for the council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments at all? Are you happy then to accept the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 on page 130 of your agenda? Agreed. Thank you. And we move to item 8 and give Councillor Bowers a break. The procurement of plastic refuge and recycling sacks. Councillor Tom Cunningham, and it's on page 135 of your agenda.
Chairman, thank you very much indeed. A relatively straightforward report this, but nevertheless a very important one, and that is to delegate authority to the Corporate Director Operations to award the contract for a successful bidder to supply plastic and recycle sacks to support our recycling service. On this occasion, we've used a national procurement framework which offers us additional savings, and it, as I say, will ensure we have sufficient supply to carry out our objectives regarding recycling for the 12-month period, but also making sure that we're in a position to be flexible for any, in terms of procurement for any future waste collection arrangements that may be agreed by Cabinet in the upcoming months. So, Chairman, I'm very pleased to move recommendation 2.1 on page 135 of the report to approve the delegated authority of the Corporate Director Operational to award a 12-month contract to the successive bidder for the 25-26 supply of refuse and recycling sacks, provided it's within existing budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded? Yes? Thanks. Right. Any comments or questions at all? No? Right. Are you just for clarity for anyone who might be watching, Councillor Cunningham, recycling sacks, and we know we're doing a waste
Yes,
consultation at the present time. Can you just explain to people who may be watching why we still will need these sacks, etc.?
We've got a current supply that will take us to the sort of beginning, middle of first quarter of the financial year. This is to ensure we simply have a supply that will take us through to the end of the financial year and in place for any future waste collection arrangements coming into force next spring.
And emphasises that we are in a true consultation period.
Absolutely.
And haven't made a decision at the moment.
Absolutely, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, are you happy, members, to approve the recommendation in 2.1? Agreed? Thank you very much. That, I think, brings us, well, I don't think, I know, brings us to the end of the agenda tonight. We have no items to take in private session, so I will declare the meeting closed at something like 8:06, I would think, 8:06. Thank you very much indeed.